Today I'm going to tell you about 28-year-old Siham Badawi's story from Gaza, Palestine. Her 6-month-old son Rami was born completely blind due to congenital cataracts, a condition that could be corrected with surgery, but only if performed before his first birthday. When doctors told Siham the operation would cost $18,000, she faced a decision that would either save her baby's sight or leave her family homeless. Would she risk everything they owned for the chance that her son might see her face? What would you do if your child's vision depended on gambling your family's entire future? Imagine holding your baby, knowing he will never see your smile, never watch a sunrise, never look into your eyes with recognition, unless you're willing to lose the roof over your family's head. I know this might break your heart, but imagine if this were your own daughter making such an impossible choice. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel so we can keep sharing these important stories from Palestine. What did Siham risk for her baby's sight? And how did this decision change not just Rami's future, but her entire family's understanding of what home really means? Stay with me until the end to find out. 28-year-old Siham Badawi had spent 3 years saving every penny to buy a small house in Gaza City, Palestine. Working as a seamstress while her husband Fuad worked as a plumber, they had sacrificed countless small pleasures to accumulate enough money for a down payment on their own home. The little 2-bedroom house wasn't luxurious, but it represented everything they had dreamed of: security, stability, and a place where they could raise their children with dignity. Siham and Fuad had been married for 4 years and had one precious daughter, 3-year-old Lena, who filled their home with laughter and joy. When Siham discovered she was pregnant with their second child, the family was overjoyed. They spent months preparing the nursery, dreaming about their growing family, and planning for the future. The house had cost them everything they had saved, plus a mortgage that would take 15 years to pay off. But Siham felt proud every time she walked through their front door, knowing that this home belonged to them and represented all their hard work and dreams. "Our children will grow up in their own house," Siham would tell Fuad as they worked together to make small improvements to their home. "They'll have a place that's truly theirs, where they feel safe and secure." When baby Rami was born on a beautiful spring morning, Siham's first emotion was pure joy. He was a healthy weight, had all 10 fingers and toes, and seemed perfect in every way. But as the hours passed, Siham began to notice something that filled her with growing concern. "Fuad," she said to her husband as they watched their newborn son, "Rami isn't opening his eyes. He hasn't looked at me once since he was born." At first, the nurses assured them that some babies take time to open their eyes fully. But when Rami was 3 days old and still hadn't made eye contact with his parents, Dr. Nadia, the pediatrician, decided to conduct more thorough examinations. If this story is already touching your heart as a parent, please give it a like. Can you imagine the worry of realizing your newborn baby might never see your face? Let's continue with Siham's incredible journey of maternal determination. The diagnosis came when Rami was 1 week old, delivered with the gentle compassion that Dr. Nadia had learned was necessary when sharing life-changing news with new parents. "Rami has bilateral congenital cataracts," she explained to Siham and Fuad. "Both of his eyes have dense clouding of the natural lenses, which means he cannot see light or shapes. He is functionally blind." Siham felt her world collapse as she held her tiny son, realizing that he would never see her face, never watch his sister Lena playing, never experience the visual beauty of the world around him. "Is there treatment?" Fuad asked, his voice barely a whisper. Dr. Nadia nodded carefully. "Yes, there is hope. The cataracts can be surgically removed, and artificial lenses can be implanted. If this is done before Rami's first birthday, while his visual system is still developing, he could gain functional sight. But the surgery is complex and expensive." "How expensive?" Siham asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. "The surgery requires specialized pediatric ophthalmology equipment and expertise that isn't available in Gaza," Dr. Nadia explained. "Rami would need to be treated at a children's eye hospital in Germany or the United States. The total cost, including surgery, hospital stay, and follow-up care, would be approximately $18,000. $18,000. More than Siham and Fuad earned in 2 years combined. More money than they had ever imagined needing for their child's health. That night, as baby Rami slept peacefully in his crib, unaware that his world was completely dark, Siham and Fuad sat at their kitchen table trying to figure out how they could possibly raise such an enormous sum. "We could ask family for loans," Fuad suggested, though they both knew their relatives were struggling financially and couldn't provide significant help. "We could sell everything we own," Siham said, looking around their small home. "Our furniture, our car, my sewing machine. But even if they sold every possession they owned, it wouldn't come close to $18,000. There was only one asset they had that was worth enough money to pay for Rami's surgery: their house. The house they had worked 3 years to buy. The house that represented their dreams, their security, their children's future. The house that, if sold, would leave them homeless but might give their son the gift of sight. Siham, Fuad said quietly, we can't sell our house. Where would we live? How would we provide stability for Lena and Rami? Siham looked at her sleeping son, imagining a future where he would never see his sister's face, never watch a sunset, never read a book, never see the smile of the woman who loved him more than life itself. Fuad, she replied, what good is a house if our son can't see it? What good is security if Rami lives in permanent darkness? A house is just walls and a roof. Our children's health and future are what really matter. The decision that Siham made that night would test every assumption she had ever held about what it means to provide for a family. She realized that sometimes protecting your children means risking everything you thought was important for their future. When will families have access to specialized medical care without having to choose between their children's health and their basic security? When will children born with treatable conditions receive care regardless of their parents' ability to pay? Every baby deserves medical treatment that doesn't require families to risk homelessness. The next morning, Siham made one of the most difficult phone calls of her life. She contacted a real estate agent to discuss selling their house as quickly as possible. You want to sell this house? The agent asked, confused. But you just bought it 8 months ago. You'll lose money on the transaction fees and market changes. Siham explained about baby Rami's condition and the urgent need for surgery funds. The real estate agent, Khalil, was so moved by the story that she offered to waive her commission and help find a buyer willing to pay full market value quickly. Sister Siham, Khalil said, what you're doing for your son is extraordinary. I'll do everything I can to help you get the best price in the shortest time. Within 2 weeks, Khalil had found a buyer for the house, a young couple who understood Siham's situation and agreed to pay the full asking price without haggling. The sale would provide exactly the $18,000 needed for Rami's surgery, but it would leave the Badawi family without a home. During those 2 weeks, as they prepared to sell their house, Siham had to explain to 3-year-old Lena why they would be moving away from the home she loved. Mama, Lena asked innocently, why do we have to leave our house? I like my room with the pink walls that Baba painted for me. Siham knelt down and hugged her daughter. Lena, my sweet girl, we're selling our house so that baby Rami can have an operation that will help him see. When he can see, he'll be able to look at your pretty face and watch you play. Isn't that worth more than any house? Lena, with the wisdom that children sometimes possess, nodded seriously. Yes, Mama. I want Rami to see me. Houses are just places, but brothers are forever. The day they moved out of their house was one of the most emotional days of Siham's life. As she packed their belongings and prepared to move in temporarily with Fuad's parents, she walked through each room one last time, remembering the dreams they had built within those walls. But as she picked up baby Rami from his crib, she felt a sense of peace. Soon, my little one, she whispered to him, you'll be able to see the world. And that's worth more than any house we could ever own. 3 weeks later, Siham and baby Rami traveled to a specialized children's eye hospital in Germany, where Dr. Müller, a renowned pediatric ophthalmologist, would perform the delicate surgery to remove Rami's cataracts and implant artificial lenses. The operation took 4 hours, during which Siham sat in the hospital waiting room, praying that her sacrifice would result in her son's ability to see. When Dr. Müller finally emerged from surgery with a smile on his face, Siham felt overwhelming relief. The surgery was completely successful, Dr. Müller announced. We were able to remove both cataracts and implant the artificial lenses perfectly. When the bandages come off in a few days, Rami should be able to see for the first time in his life. The moment when Rami's bandages were removed was something Siham would treasure forever. As the gauze was carefully unwrapped from his tiny eyes, 6-month-old Rami blinked in the hospital light and, for the first time in his life, looked directly at his mother's face. He's looking at me, Siham whispered through tears of joy. He can see me. He's really looking into my eyes. Dr. Müller confirmed that Rami's vision was developing normally and that with proper follow-up care, he should have near-normal sight throughout his life. 6 months later, when Siham and Rami returned to Gaza, they were greeted by an incredible surprise. The story of the mother who had sold her house to give her baby sight had spread throughout their community and beyond. Palestinian families around the world had been so moved by Siham's sacrifice that they had organized a fund to help the family rebuild their lives. The community had raised enough money not only to help Siham and Fuad buy a new house, but to establish a fund for other families facing similar medical emergencies. Local contractors had volunteered their services, and the new house was actually larger and more comfortable than the one they had sold. This house isn't just from us, explained Dr. Amira, who had coordinated the community response. It's from every Palestinian family who believes that mothers like you represent the best of our values, the willingness to sacrifice everything for our children's future. Today, 2 years later, Rami is a healthy, active toddler with perfect vision who loves to explore his world visually. He recognizes his mother's face instantly, delights in watching his sister Lena play, and shows all the normal visual development milestones that his parents had once feared he would never experience. Siham has become an advocate for families dealing with children's vision problems, helping other parents navigate the challenges of finding treatment and funding for specialized eye care. She often tells other mothers, "A house can be rebuilt, but our children's futures are irreplaceable." The original house that Siham sold has become a symbol in their community of parental sacrifice and love. The new owners often receive visitors who want to see the house that gave a baby sight, and they proudly share Siham's story with everyone who asks. Fuad has started a small business providing home repairs for families who can't afford professional contractors, inspired by the community support his family received. "When people helped us rebuild our lives," he says, "we learned that helping others rebuild theirs is the best way to honor that generosity." 3-year-old Lena loves to play games with Rami that involve sight, hiding behind furniture for him to find her, showing him colorful toys, and pointing out birds and flowers in their garden. She often tells people, "My baby brother can see everything because Mama loved him so much." The fund that was established in Siham's honor has now helped 12 other families access specialized medical care for their children's vision problems. Each family supported by the fund receives a note explaining that their assistance comes from a community that believes children's health is worth any sacrifice. When will all children born with treatable conditions have access to the medical care they need without requiring their parents to risk everything? When will societies ensure that saving a child's sight doesn't mean losing a family's security? Every child deserves healthcare that preserves both their health and their family's stability. If you believe that mothers like Siham should never have to choose between their children's sight and their family's home, if you believe that children's medical needs should be met without requiring parents to risk homelessness, please like this video so this story of ultimate maternal sacrifice can reach people who can make a difference. Right now, thousands of people are watching this story of a mother's impossible choice and a community's beautiful response. Let's make sure Siham's message, that love means being willing to risk everything for our children's future, and that communities can honor such sacrifice by ensuring families don't face these choices alone, reaches every corner of the world. Can you imagine if you had to sell your home to give your baby the gift of sight? Can you imagine if your child's vision depended on your willingness to risk your family's security? Think about the families in your community who might be facing similar impossible choices between medical needs and basic stability. Every like, every comment shows that mothers like Siham and families making extraordinary sacrifices are not forgotten. If you believe that parental love deserves community support and that children's health should never require family homelessness, leave a Palestinian flag emoji in the comments. Subscribe to our channel to show that you stand with parents who risk everything for their children and communities that help families rebuild after such sacrifices. Tomorrow we'll bring you another story that will remind you of the incredible power of parental love and the way communities can transform individual sacrifice into collective healing. Don't miss it. Subscribe so we can continue sharing these important stories of parental devotion, community support, and hope from Palestine. Will you share a prayer for families like Siham's and all the parents facing impossible choices between their children's health and their family's security in the comments? They need our recognition, our support, and our commitment to ensuring that saving children's lives never requires destroying family stability. Note, the names mentioned in this story have been changed for privacy purposes. This story is inspired by real events experienced by families facing pediatric medical emergencies and communities supporting parents who make extraordinary sacrifices in Palestine.